Kyle texted me at 7:12 on a Sunday morning while I was on the back deck with a socket wrench in one hand and a mug of black coffee, going cold on the rail beside me. The message was just a screenshot. No caption. No warning. I wiped my hand on my jeans and opened it. Lauren was sitting under warm string lights at some lakeside lounge. The kind of place with polished wood tables, white cushions, and drinks that came with orange peels curled over the rim. She was wearing the cream sweater she said was too nice to pack for her solo reset weekend. Derek was next to her in a navy button-down with the sleeves rolled neatly to the elbows, smiling like a man who had never once heard the word no. His hand was resting on the back of her chair. Too low. Far too low. What hit harder than that was a caption. Some men still think marriage is ownership. Good thing some of us outgrow old models. It was public. That was the first thing I noticed. Not sent to friends. Not buried in a private story. Public. Like she wanted people to see it, read it, connect the dots, and laugh before I even knew I was a joke. I read it 3 times. Then I checked her profile myself. There it was. Hundreds of likes already. A few comments from her coworkers. Little fire emojis. Applause. One woman wrote, "Say it louder." Derek had liked it 12 minutes after it went up. The deck rail creaked under my grip. I looked out over our fenced backyard, the trimmed hedges. The empty bird feeder Lauren kept meaning to refill. The quiet row of houses still half asleep in the pale gray Minnesota morning. Everything looked the same. The grill cover, the hose coiled by the steps, my tools laid out in a straight line beside my knee. My life had always looked orderly from the outside. Lauren and I had built that look carefully. Dinner parties, clean counters, weekend plans, her bright laugh floating across rooms full of people who thought we were solid. I handled numbers, contracts, repairs, all the boring parts that kept a life standing. She handled charm, movement, momentum. She liked to say I made things stable, and she made them shine. Lately, though, she'd been gone more. Later nights, leadership dinners, retreats, new clothes bought for networking. Derek's name showing up too often, always wrapped in professional language. Ambition, strategy, alignment. I told myself that was marriage after enough years. 2 people drifting a little, then coming back. But standing there with that screenshot on my phone and the smell of damp wood rising from the deck, I understood something with perfect clarity. Private betrayal is one thing. Public humiliation is a decision. And Lauren had just made hers. I didn't call her. I didn't throw the wrench across the yard or punch a hole in drywall, like the kind of husband people expect in stories like this. I set the phone face down on the deck rail, tightened the last bolt on the sagging post, and finished the repair. That part matters, because by the time I walked back into the house, I was no longer trying to understand what Lauren meant. I was measuring what she had already decided to risk. Inside, the place was cool and silent. The kitchen counters were wiped clean. The lemon hand soap she liked sat beside the sink in its frosted glass bottle. A pale blue dish towel hung perfectly folded over the oven handle. Everything looked staged for normal life, which made the 2 extra coffee cups in the sink stand out immediately. They weren't ours. One was a dark green ceramic mug from a hotel or lodge gift shop, stamped with a pine tree and a faded gold outline of a lake. The other was matte black, heavier, with a chip near the rim. Both had dried coffee rings at the bottom. Both had been rinsed badly and left behind in a hurry. Lauren had told me she left alone before sunrise on Friday. I looked at those cups for a long second, then turned away. My study sat at the end of the hall, small and plain compared to the rest of the house. No stage warmth in there, just shelves, files, a steel desk lamp, and a narrow closet with tax boxes stacked in date order. I moved the 2021 file bin, reached behind the old depreciation folders, and pulled out the fireproof box. The key was where it had always been, taped beneath the drawer of my desk. Inside were passports, backup drives, insurance papers, 2 old property deeds, and beneath them, exactly what I was looking for, a thick legal envelope, yellowed slightly at the corners, tied with a cotton string. Lauren barely remembered signing it. I remembered every page. Years ago, when her father was shuffling ownership structures and boutique consulting branches like a man hiding cards up both sleeves, Lauren needed a clean entity to hold one side of venture for tax and succession reasons. Temporary, she called it. Administrative. My name on one line. My holding company on another. Hers on the rest. She'd sign because I told her it mattered. Then she forgot, because forgetting was one of Lauren's gifts. I loosened the string and flipped through the packet. Signature pages. Amendments. Governance language dense enough to make most people stop reading by paragraph 2. I didn't. The clause tabs were still where I had left them. I put the envelope in a duffel bag, added 2 shirts, a charger, my shaving kit, and the hard drive from the desk drawer. No drama. No note. No speech rehearsed in the mirror. By then, I knew this had nothing to do with flirting. Not really. Flirting doesn't leave strange cups in your sink and captions on the internet like a lit match dropped in dry grass. This was carelessness layered over arrogance. And somewhere beneath both of those, there was structure, papers, money, exposure. I zipped the bag, looked once at the silent kitchen, and walked out the front door without making a sound. I didn't drive to the office. Anyone who knew me would have expected that. Clean up loose ends. Check accounts. Control the narrative early. That version of me stayed behind in Minnesota with the deck tools and the quiet street. I drove south. By the time the sun was high, I was already past Des Moines. By nightfall, I stopped just long enough to sleep. No calls, no music, just highway lines and time to think without interruption. Lauren texted once. Signal is bad here. Talk later. I didn't respond. By the second day, the air changed. Dry, flat, open in a way Minnesota never was. By the third, I pulled into a sun-faded office park on the edge of Tucson, the kind of place that hadn't been updated since the late 90s. Beige walls, cracked asphalt, a flickering sign that read Garner Mediation and Commercial Resolution. Wes Garner didn't believe in appearances. His office smelled faintly of dust and old paper. No receptionist, no polished glass, just a metal desk, 2 chairs, and a man in his 70s who looked like he had spent a lifetime watching people ruin themselves slowly. He didn't stand when I walked in. Ethan, he said, like he'd been expecting me for years. I set the duffel on the chair and pulled out the envelope. I need you to reopen something, I said. He looked at the string-tied packet for a long moment before touching it. Not curious, not surprised, just precise, like a surgeon recognizing an old instrument. Haven't seen one of these in a while, he muttered, sliding his glasses on. We sat in silence as he worked through the pages. The only sound was paper shifting and the low hum of an ancient air conditioner struggling against the heat. After a few minutes, he stopped. His finger rested on a tab section. Section 12, he said. I didn't answer. He read it again, slower this time, like he was weighing each word instead of just recognizing them. Then he leaned back slightly and looked at me over the top of the document. She signaled something publicly, he asked. Yes. Traceable? Yes. Recent. This morning. He nodded once. Not approval. Confirmation. Then it's still alive, he said. And more importantly, enforceable. That was the moment everything shifted. Not emotionally. Structurally. Wes turned the document toward me and tapped the clause with a dry finger. Protect the control provision, he said. If a partner materially damages reputation or ethical standing, a silent holder can step in. He paused, then added, almost casually, most people sign this thinking it's theoretical. I looked down at Lauren's signature. Clean, confident, slight upward tilt at the end, like she always expected things to go her way. She doesn't remember it exists. I said. Wes gave a small, humorless smile. They never do. Outside, the desert sun pressed hard against the windows. Inside, the air felt still, like something had just been set in motion that didn't need noise to carry it forward. All right, Wes said, closing the folder gently. Then let's wake it up. She called that evening. Unknown number at first, then the same number again 5 minutes later. Then Lauren's name lit up on the screen, like nothing had changed. I answered on the third ring. Background noise spilled through immediately. Water, soft music, distant voices. A spa, control comm, manufactured peace. Hey, she said, light, almost amused. Finally, I was starting to think you were ignoring me. I didn't respond. She exhaled, a small laugh slipping into her voice. Okay, so I'm guessing you saw the post. Silence again. It's satire, Ethan, she continued, like she was explaining something simple to someone slow. You know, commentary. Not everything is literal. I leaned back in the chair across from Wes's desk, watching the last of the daylight fade through the dusty window. Is that what it is? I said. She missed the tone completely. Yes, she said quickly. Exactly. People are just reacting. It's engagement. That's how this works. A pause. Then, softer but sharper underneath. You've been distant lately. I didn't think you'd take it this personally. There it was. Shift the frame. Make it my reaction, not her action. And Derek, I asked. Another small laugh. Controlled. Oh my God, Ethan, he's a colleague. Someone who actually understands ambition. We were at a group dinner. People took pictures. That's it. Her voice tightened slightly at the edges. You always do this. You take something small and turn it into... Lauren. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't interrupt quickly. I just said her name once. She stopped talking. For the first time since the call started, there was actual silence on her end. You're free, I said. A beat. What? You're free to live however you want. I continued, evenly. Say whatever you want. Post whatever you want. The water sounds in the background seemed louder now, or maybe she had stepped closer to it. That's not what this is about, she said, but there was uncertainty now. You're being dramatic. No, I said. I'm being clear. Another pause. Longer this time. You're overreacting. She tried again, but the confidence wasn't fully there anymore. We'll talk when I get back. You just need to calm down. I looked at the closed envelope on the desk beside me, at the tab marking section 12, at the quiet, patient man across from me who hadn't said a word during the call. We don't need to talk, I said. And before she could reshape the conversation again, I ended it. The line went dead. No escalation. No argument. No explanation. Just absence. Across the room, Wes nodded once, almost imperceptibly. Lauren thought she had just won a disagreement. What she didn't understand yet was that I had already stopped thinking like her husband and started moving like something else entirely. We didn't rush. That was the first thing Wes made clear after call ended. Speed is what people use when they're emotional, he said, sliding the document back toward himself. Precision is what wins. So we worked. The office light stayed dim, casting a dull yellow over stacks of paper that hadn't been touched in years. Wes pulled old filing cabinets open one by one, each drawer labeled in handwriting that hadn't changed in decades. Entities, amendments, transitional structures. Names Lauren had rebranded, renamed, or buried under newer, cleaner versions of the company. But paper doesn't forget. We build it slowly. Original formation documents, supplemental agreements, renewal clauses that auto-triggered under quiet conditions no one paid attention to anymore. Each time Lauren had modernized the company, she thought she was simplifying it, streamlining, making it future-ready. What she actually did was layer new language on top of old protections without removing them. Wes found the first confirmation just after midnight. Here, he said, tapping a page with the back of his pen. An addendum from 3 years ago. Signed digitally. Clean. Efficient. Exactly the kind of document Lauren preferred. See this, he asked. I leaned closer. A reference line, small, almost invisible unless you knew where to look, carried forward legacy governance provisions. Section 12 wasn't replaced. It was preserved. I felt it settle in quietly. Not excitement. Not satisfaction. Just alignment. We kept going. By 2 a.m., we had a chain. Unbroken. Legally intact. Enforceable. But that wasn't the part that mattered most. That came an hour later. Wes handed me a thinner file, newer than the rest. Your wife pushed this through herself, he said. I opened it. Corporate Ethics and Public Conduct Policy. Revised edition. Her name was on an author line. I read slowly. Language about leadership responsibility. Public representation. Reputational risk tied to executive behavior. Then the clause. Clear, direct, modern. Any public communication or conduct by an executive that undermines the ethical standing or professional credibility of the organization may trigger internal review and corrective governance action. I read it twice, then a third time. The phrasing was different from Section 12. Softer, more contemporary. But the meaning, it matched almost word for word. Lauren had written her own standard, and now she had violated it. Publicly, repeatedly, documented in real time. Wes watched me close the file. That's the part people never see coming, he said quietly. They protect themselves in theory. I looked at the screenshot Kyle sent, at the caption, at the tone she thought was untouchable. What she saw as confidence would now be framed as misconduct, not by me, by her own language. I set the file down carefully. No warnings, I said. Wes shook his head once. No warnings, he agreed. Outside, the desert had gone completely still. No wind, no sound, just darkness stretching out past the parking lot. Inside, the paper trail was no longer history. It was active, and for the first time since that morning on the deck, everything was exactly where it needed to be. Lauren didn't slow down. If anything, she escalated. By the next morning, there were 3 new posts. Palm trees, clean white walls, a mirror hallway in some luxury resort in Palm Springs. She stood in the center of it, phone angled just right. Sunlight catching her hair like it had been planned in advance. Caption, some people stay stuck. Some people evolve. The comments came fast. Applause, validation, the same circle reinforcing the same performance. I didn't open them twice. Wes did. Pattern matters, he said, scrolling slowly. Not just one post. Repetition builds intent. The next clip was shorter. A toast, champagne glasses, laughter just a little too loud. Derek leaned into frame halfway through, not even pretending to stay out of it anymore. His hand brushed her lower back as he passed behind her. Not accidental. Familiar. Comfortable. The third post was the one that mattered. At first glance, it looked like nothing. A hallway shot. Lauren walking ahead, heels sharp against polished stone. Derek behind her saying something that made her laugh mid-step. Casual. Candid. But Wes paused it. Back up. I did. Frame by frame. There it was. Clipped to Derek's belt, partially hidden under his jacket. A company access badge. Not for the event. Not generic. Branded. After hours. I felt the shift immediately. Not emotional. Structural. He shouldn't have that visible outside authorized use, Wes said quietly. Especially not in that context. Lauren probably didn't even notice it. That was the problem. Carelessness always shows up in small details first. I set the phone down. She kept posting. Afternoon turned into evening. More clips. More captions about rewriting rules, not apologizing for growth. Choosing yourself. Each one louder than the last. Each one pushing further away from anything that could be explained as harmless. And I did nothing. No message. No reaction. No attempt to interrupt what she was building. Because silence has a function. Without resistance, people reveal more. They get comfortable. They stop checking angles. They forget who might be watching. By midnight, there were 5 posts total. All public. All documented. All aligned with the same tone. Across the desk was Close's notebook. She thinks she's controlling the narrative, he said. I looked at the screen one last time before locking it. She is, I said, and that was the truth. Lauren was telling her story exactly how she wanted. Confident, untouchable, unfiltered. The only thing she didn't understand yet was that every word, every frame, every careless second was now evidence. She got the notice Sunday night. Not from me. Not from anyone she expected. Corporate compliance. Formal subject line. Neutral tone. No emotion. Request for a scheduled video review regarding public conduct. Blurred professional boundaries and potential reputational exposure tied to executive visibility. Wes had it forwarded to me within minutes. I read it once, then closed it. No reaction needed. Lauren responded differently. Her first move wasn't concern. It was irritation. She called twice. I didn't answer. Then the messages started. Did you report something? Seriously, Ethan? This is getting ridiculous. I let them sit. Another hour passed. Her tone shifted. This is about that post, isn't it? You're actually trying to damage my career over a joke? Still nothing from me. By the fourth message, the edge was gone. Now there was pressure behind it. Pick up the phone. I didn't, because this part mattered more than anything that came before it. Not the posts, not the picture, not even Derek. This was the first real consequence. And she didn't understand where it was coming from. Monday morning, she tried a different angle. Email, longer this time, controlled, structured, the version of Lauren she used in meetings. She framed it as a misunderstanding, said someone must have misinterpreted her content, suggested internal overreach, asked if I had spoken to anyone out of concern. I read it carefully, then forwarded it, not to her, to Wes. He responded with a single line. Good, she's documenting herself. By noon, she escalated again. Short messages, sharper tone. You're making a mistake. You have no idea how this works. I can fix this, but not if you keep interfering. That one almost sounded like control again. Almost. At 12:47, she sent the last message. Call me. Now. I replied once. Not for my number. Not with my name. A formal response. Routed through the law office, Wes had already looped in. Clear. Cold. Final. All future communication regarding this matter should be directed through counsel. Nothing else. No explanation. No emotion. Just structure. There was a long gap after that. Hours. No messages. No calls. Silence. Across the desk. Wes looked up from his notes. That's when it lands, he said. I didn't ask what he meant. I already knew. Lauren thought this was still personal. An argument. A disagreement she could reframe, redirect, or win if she pushed hard enough. What she didn't understand yet was that she had already been moved out of that category. She wasn't talking to her husband anymore. She was talking into a process. And processes don't respond to emotion. She didn't call me again. She called her father. Mitchell always answered her. That had been the pattern for as long as I'd known them. Problems didn't escalate in Lauren's world. They got absorbed, redirected, handled quietly by someone else before they could become real. But this time, it didn't go the way she expected. Wes got the summary before the call even ended. Speakerphone, he said, glancing at his email. Mitchell's assistant panicked and looped legal too early. I said nothing. He read silently for a few seconds, then leaned back. She didn't know, he said. That part didn't surprise me. What about him? I asked. Wes gave a small, measured pause. He remembers. That mattered. Mitchell had been the one who insisted on keeping legacy protections when the company transitioned. I remembered conversation, years ago, late evening, him explaining risk like it was a living thing. You don't remove old locks, he had said. You just stop thinking about them until you need them. Lauren had laughed at the time, called it paranoid, outdated. Now she was on the other end of that decision. According to the summary, the call started controlled. Lauren framing it as an overreaction, a compliance issue, something small that needed to be cleaned up. Mitchell didn't interrupt. He asked one question. Is the content still public? Yes. And you posted it yourself? A pause. Yes, but... That's enough. Wes looked up at me briefly, then back down. He didn't raise his voice, he said. Didn't argue, just recalibrated. That was the word. Recalibrated. Because once Mitchell understood what had been triggered, the situation stopped being about her. It became structural. He explained it to her. Not gently, not harshly, just clearly. The governance documents were never removed. The succession layers were still intact. And Section 12 still existed, still applied, still enforceable. Lauren tried to push back, said it was outdated, said the company had evolved, said none of that language would hold up under modern review. Mitchell didn't argue the theory. He pointed to one fact. They were never dissolved. Silence followed, long enough that even through a summarized report, you could feel it. Then she asked a question that mattered. Who activated it? Mitchell didn't answer immediately. He didn't need to, because there weren't many people who could, and fewer still who would. Wes closed the email and folded his hands. She knows now, he said. I nodded once. Not satisfaction, not relief, just confirmation. The cruel part wasn't the clause. It wasn't even the timing. It was this. The system she dismissed as irrelevant was the same system her father had preserved to protect her. And now it was turning. Not emotionally, not personally, just functionally. Exactly the way it was designed to. She came back early. Didn't finish the retreat. Didn't post a drive. No farewell clips. No closing captions about growth or new chapters. Just silence. Then movement. I saw the flight confirmation forwarded through legal before she even landed. Urgent return. No checked baggage. She packed fast. That told me everything. Lauren didn't run from problems. She returned to control them. By late afternoon, her car pulled into the driveway. The same driveway she had left 2 days earlier, like nothing could touch her. Now she stepped out slower. No phone in her hand. No performance. Just focus. She walked straight to the front door and tried the handle. Locked. A small pause. Not panic. Not yet. She tried again, firmer this time. Nothing. Then the keypad. Code entered once. Error. Again. Error. That's when the stillness around her started to break. She stepped back slightly, eyes scanning the house like it had shifted in her absence. Inside, movement. 2 men she didn't recognize. Gloves. Clipboards. Methodical. Inventory tags already placed on furniture. Clean labels on boxes stacked near the hallway. Not chaotic. Organized. Professional. The door opened, not for her, but from inside. One of the movers stepped out, holding a tablet. Lauren, he asked neutral. She didn't answer immediately. Her eyes were already moving past him, looking into the house. Seeing it. Empty spaces where things used to be. Shelves cleared. Frames removed. The absence of her arranged life more noticeable than anything still left behind. What is this? She asked. No anger yet. Just disbelief. The man glanced down at the tablet. We're completing a scheduled transfer and catalog process, he said. Everything is itemized. That's my house. He didn't react. Just stepped slightly aside. On the entry table, where she used to drop her keys, there was a clean stack of documents. Centered. Deliberate. She walked past him slowly. Picked them up. Her name was there. So was mine. So was the holding company. Ownership structure. Asset shielding. Acquisition layering she had signed years ago and never thought about again. Every page said the same thing in different ways. This was never hers. Not legally. Not structurally. Not in any way that mattered now. Her hand tightened slightly on the papers. Still no explosion. Not yet. Then she saw the note, placed neatly on top. Handwritten. Just one line. You wanted an audience. Here it is. That was the moment it broke. Not loudly, not dramatically, but completely, because outside the house, her phone started vibrating again. Notifications stacking. Emails. Access denied alerts. Executive login blocked. Internal systems locked. Her assistant's number unreachable. Derek's profile gone from the directory. Vanished cleanly, like he had never been part of it. Lauren stood in the middle of the entryway, surrounded by the quiet, controlled dismantling of everything she thought she owned. No audience now. No comments. No applause. Just consequence. And for the first time, no control. She didn't wait. Didn't go home. Didn't call anyone else. Lauren drove straight through the night. Chicago by morning. The headquarters building rose out of glass and steel, exactly the way she liked it. Clean, reflective, controlled. For years, she walked into that place like it belonged to her. This time, security didn't greet her. They paused, checked something, then stepped aside without a word. That was the first sign. Inside, the atmosphere felt wrong. Too quiet. Assistants avoiding eye contact. Conversations stopping when she passed. Doors already closed. She didn't slow down. Boardroom. That was a target. She pushed the door open without knocking. They were already seated. Every chair filled. Legal, compliance, 2 external directors. Her father, still silent, not looking at her. And at the far end, an empty chair where she used to sit. Lauren walked in like she could still bend the room back into shape. "What is this?" she said, sharp, controlled. "Who authorized?" "No one authorized anything." One of the directors interrupted calmly. "It's already been executed." She stopped, just for a second, then recovered. "This is a mistake," she said. "I'll address the compliance issue directly. Whatever report you've seen is incomplete." No one moved. No one defended her. A folder was slid across the table. Not toward her, toward the center. Documented posts. Timestamps. Policy language. Her language, highlighted side by side with her own captions. Word-for-word alignment. Then the second section. Access logs. After-hours presence. Derek's badge usage. Cross-reference with her posts. Then the final page. Section 12. Activated. Validated. Enforced. Lauren didn't sit down. She didn't touch the folder. She looked at her father. "Say something." Mitchell finally met her eyes. For a moment, there was something there. Not anger. Not even disappointment. Just distance. "I tried to explain it to you," he said quietly. "That clause is outdated," she snapped. "You know it is." "No," he said. "It's active." Silence filled the room. Then the chairman spoke. "The board has completed an emergency review," he said. "Based on the evidence and governing documents, your executive authority is suspended effective immediately." Lauren's control cracked. "You can't do that." "It's already done." Her eyes moved quickly now, looking for support, for hesitation, for anything. There was nothing. "And Derek?" she asked sharper now. A brief pause. Then, "He's no longer with the company." Just like that. Removed. Contained. Collateral. Lauren let out a slow breath, like she was trying to reset herself one last time. "You're making a mistake," she said. No one answered, because there was nothing left to argue. This wasn't a discussion. It was a conclusion. Her father stood up first, not to defend her, to leave. That was the final confirmation. Lauren remained standing in the center of the room. She used control. No title, no authority, no leverage, just consequences, laid out cleanly in front of her. Miles away, in northern Wisconsin, I sat on the edge of a quiet lake with a piece of sandpaper in my hand. The cabin was small. Old wood, no signal, just water stretching out under a pale sky. I ran the sandpaper slowly along the edge of an old canoe paddle, smoothing out years of wear, feeling the grains settle under steady pressure. No rush, no noise, no audience. Behind me, my phone stayed off. I didn't need updates. I already knew how it would end, because this was never about anger. Not really. Anger is loud, temporary, uncontrolled. This was something else. Patient, structured, quiet, and in the end, far more final. Lauren didn't lose everything because I took it from her. She lost it because she showed exactly who she was, and I simply made sure the system believed her.